Good afternoon, this is Jeff with Sewer Tech Northwest. Today we're at property address 20802 Southwest 104th Avenue here in Tualatin. We're located at the front of the house here. We're just off to the right side of the doorway. That railing there is what leads up to the door. In this little nook cut out here in front of the house, we have a 3-inch ABS cleanout. If you ever lose track of it, it is right next to this tree stump. We're going to insert the camera and check the overall condition and serviceability of the sanitary sewer line. Currently have water running. Looks like it transitions here immediately upon access over to PVC pipe. And as best I can tell, that appears to also be 3-inch in diameter. It's right on the point of entry there where we don't get a great view of the pipe joint, but that's what it appears to be. Right off the bat, very clean line. I'm not seeing any evidence that people have been putting grease or oil down the sink, which is nice to see. Putting grease and fats and stuff down your sink will lead to more buildup than about anything else you put down your line. Causes everything else to stick to the pipe that would otherwise flow on its way. All right, we transition here over to 6-inch concrete. And what I am noticing at a few of these concrete joints, and we'll go past them on the way back out too, a few of them here do have dirt and some staining around the pipe joint, which granted is not something that's affecting functionality as far as getting debris from point A to point B. In fact, there's an earthworm right there going up and down the pipe wall. Those joints are open to the ground. Now what those joints can do, it's not so much the concern of allowing sewage to escape the line. That's highly unlikely unless you've got a really big gap in between these joints. None of these joints so far look that way. They're all very tight. What can happen over time, sometimes the joints are grouted, sometimes they're just friction set. But they can become compromised over time, allowing groundwater in as well as dirt. I don't see groundwater coming in today or anything like that, but I am seeing dirt and water staining at most of the pipe joints in there. So from an inspection standpoint, the line is no longer, at least in the concrete portion of the sewer line, is no longer watertight any longer, and can lead again to groundwater. It makes the joints easier for roots to penetrate through them, things of that nature. So I am going to recommend an update to the concrete. Again, it's not something that's affecting flow at this point. It can down the road if any of those joints lead to something else. You know, the nightmare scenario is if you get enough groundwater pouring through a pipe joint, one, it can cause ground erosion above the pipe and around it, cause the line to settle, can create sinkholes. Sinkholes are usually not what happens, so don't get having nightmares about that. But that's kind of the worst case scenario, is if that kind of stuff happens. So anyway, if a repair is not done, I would keep an eye on the sewer line, rescope it every couple, 2-3 years. The way that I would do a repair like this, because the concrete stretches out into the roadway and we do have compromised joints out to the main, the only way, in my opinion, to do this it would be reasonable in cost would be to do an epoxy liner on it. I wouldn't even mess around with trying to dig this thing up. The concrete pipe flows very nicely. There would be no reason to spend that kind of money to tear the ground up. You could line this entire pipe. You'd have to install a 4-inch cleanout, however, most likely. You'd have to have a larger access point to do it, but you could avoid digging altogether. So that would be my recommendation there for the concrete pipe. And we'll kind of go back over that as we reel back out here. We're going to go locate while the line drains. All right, located the camera head successfully. Line terminates at the main out on 104th Avenue on the far opposite side of the street. I think most of this concrete pipe here is, I think, almost entirely under the roadway. Anyway, you can see the little bits of dirt coming through these pipe joints here. And now I'll locate the start of the concrete and see where that's at. I can't remember off the top of my head if the city of Tualatin takes responsibility in the roadway or not. That's something certainly worth checking into. Because if they are responsible for it, that would be on them. I would say it's highly unlikely that they'll actually do a repair on it. Most cities won't really touch much unless you've got clear tons of water escaping the sewer line, or whatever's going on is causing backups and things of that nature. sucker stick or something there in the line, or Q-tip. Don't put those down your toilet, they clog lines like crazy. Right, we're going to locate here, but from here at 28 feet out to the main lateral connection at 64 feet, that's where I would recommend doing the pipe liner. And again, I think to do this repair any other way would be way too expensive and overkill. All right, I put a marking down right here. So right now we're just a couple feet or so to the right of the driveway. This right here is in the dirt. Almost, I mean, probably 90% of this section of pipe that was under concrete between the sidewalk and the roadway. This line goes all the way to the other side of the road, which makes that section of pipe so long. Anyway, I would recommend doing a liner on it. Again, those joints are compromised. They can lead to roots getting... I'm actually surprised that a root hasn't penetrated this area. This is right next to the big tree in front. So that's certainly a concern. It obviously hasn't happened yet. But when there's dirt coming through those joints, it just makes it that much easier for them to weasel their way through there. That's why I would recommend re-scoping the line every so often, every 1, 2, 3 years, to keep an eye on things if a repair isn't done. The spot that's the most likely to get a root through it is at the transition joint there from PVC to concrete. Those are usually the weakest joints of all, because you have two different pipe materials meeting each other. Those joints just don't seal up quite as nicely. And then obviously the compromised concrete joints that span from that transition basically to the curb area. Roots can get beyond that point, but it's less likely to. Anyway, at this time we do have good flow all the way out to the main lateral connection. All the ABS and PVC pipe we've scoped here today is in good shape. The concrete pipe material itself is in good shape. It's showing very little wear. It's the pipe joints that have become compromised. So that doesn't mean that your pipe walls are just going to collapse on you tomorrow. It's not anywhere near that spot. It's just the pipe joints have been weakened. And if you do a repair, I would highly recommend re-scoping the sewer line afterwards to check the repair work. Now, the sewer line is functioning properly at this time as far as getting debris and water from point A to point B. It is not functioning in the regard of having a completely watertight sewer line.